Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Another great episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. This week, I am Matt Kirkner, your host, and we will be talking about sustainability, stewardship, diversity, equity, inclusion, of course, technical education, a particular interest of mine, the overlap and the convergence of manufacturing and the world of art. Our guest today is a corporate leader, a board member, somebody who is keenly committed to the arts, sustainable business practices, and to technical education. Laura Kohler, Senior Vice President of Human Resources, Stewardship and Sustainability for a company that, not by coincidence, shares her name, Kohler Company. Laura, welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's exciting.
So let's start with the history of your amazing company, a company that was founded all the way back in 1873. And since then, it has become a household name in a number of industries, from bathroom and kitchen and lighting appliances, generators, engines, hospitality, clean water initiatives. With such an amazing and broad reach and rich history, what can you tell us about the history of the Kohler Company? And I know the legacy of that company is really important to you. Tell us about the legacy of those that came before you.
It was started by my great-grandfather in 1873, and he was just 9 years old when he came from Austria. And he came with his father and his sisters and brothers. He made his way actually to the port of Sheboygan, right, on Lake Michigan. And he decided to go into business with a partner. Over time, he bought that partner out, and it became known as Kohler Company. And he eventually moved the company from the shores of Sheboygan 3 miles west to Kohler. And Kohler was actually called Riverside. He renamed it Kohler. And he bought a lot of land in the area. Really, it was called way back then kind of a company town, because land was offered to associates that he brought over from Europe to work at the company. And you could buy a piece of land, he would loan you the money, and you would build your house, and then you would bring your family over to work here. So he went through a lot of tenuous situations. The plant burned down 2 times, and he kept rebuilding. So he was really dedicated. He was making cast iron farm implements. So the market for his product was right around in Sheboygan County. If you come to the design center, which is in Kohler, Wisconsin, which is our headquarters, you'll see some garden implements. You'll see art start to infiltrate our product line way back into the early 1900s with the cast iron garden furniture that he was making, ornamental benches and such. Fast forward to today, we're 147, almost 48 years old, and we are 36,000 people around the world, over $6 billion in revenue, and on 6 continents. We are in everything from power systems to kitchen and bath to hotels, spas, golf courses. We have about 1,700 corporate staff that support our businesses around the world, and a shared service center that is really important to support the foundation of transactions at this company.
So really, by just about every measure, from the markets that you're in, the geography that you cover, 36,000 employees, $6 billion in revenue, a significant contributor to the American economy, to your local economy, and to individuals in general. There's so many individuals that are so very familiar with your technology and with your products, absolutely ubiquitous. So that legacy, though, isn't just through your core business. As you mentioned, it's also through your support of the arts and seeing art in manufacturing. You have a tremendous commitment to the arts community, to the preservation of the work of artists. I've learned more about that support through the Mary Noel House in Fox Point, Wisconsin. For our listeners that are not familiar with Mary Noel, she was an artist who lived on the shores of Lake Michigan, created just an incredible array of her own art. And when she passed away in the year 2001, at the age of 87, her home and her huge volume of art were passed to the Kohler Foundation. So my wife and I actually live not too far from this historic home. We've seen Kohler's commitment to the world of art through your support of the preservation and renovation taking place there. We've also seen your commitment to the arts through a recent sneak peek of the John Michael Kohler Art Preserve in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which was featured in the New York Times, I believe, within the last couple of weeks. Just a great article. Tell us, Laura, why is it that Kohler is so very committed to the arts?
Oh gosh, I think it goes all the way back to John Michael Kohler. He was actually the head of the Opera House in Sheboygan in the early days of this company. And he passed it on to his son, Walter Kohler. Walter Kohler said, workers deserve wages as well as roses. So how do we bring art into the company each and every day? We also bring art to community. And I think we believe that art is fundamental, the ability to create, the ability to express yourself, whether that is through artwork or the idea generation, new product development, is really instrumental to being the best company that we can be, but also having communities thrive. We think that art is really important to really human life. And, we support arts in community. We support arts in our factory through the arts industry program. My father and my aunt Ruth started the arts industry program almost 50 years ago. We bring 16 artists into the company every year to work in our pottery and our foundry, and they work alongside our factory associates. We have the Artist Editions collection, which are decals that are pressed onto lavatories that are beautiful artist renderings. So we just believe that arts are so important to humanity, that we all need it to fill our spirit and to help us actually drive creativity and innovation.
And I, first of all, want to tell you, thank you for mentioning your Aunt Ruth, who I understand passed within the last year. But when we talk about legacy, what an incredible legacy she's left behind in so many ways in your community and through your company. I also have to tell you, as we were touring the John Michael Kohler Art Preserve, it just occurred to me, having spent my whole career in manufacturing and seeing the creativity, the imagination, the craftsmanship that goes into, in this case, folk art, it really kind of struck me that there's a tremendous amount of overlap and convergence between the world of art and the world of manufacturing. And I'm curious if you see it the same way and whether you could expound on that idea a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea. And we see that thrive when an artist comes into the pottery and they work side by side with our associates. And they are symbiotic. They talk the same language, right? It's about materials, shaping a natural material into an object. And our factory associates are always thinking of new ways to do things. And the artist is always trying to think of a new shape, a new form, a new function. It is amazing what they co-create together, how they improve the molding process, how they fix the curve on potentially a toilet. And that factory associate learned that technique from an artist. So in many ways, factory work is creativity in motion and very similar to what the artist is doing in a factory environment.
Factory work is creativity in motion. That's not the last time you're going to hear that on the Tech Ed podcast. We'll be sure to attribute that quote to you, Laura. It's absolutely perfect. And I love the fact that you talk both about how artists and people in manufacturing are trying to do things in perhaps more efficient ways, always looking for opportunities to continuously improve. Now, that's not true just in your field of art and in your interest in manufacturing, but also in the way that you do business, is it not? But we know that you have an incredible commitment to sustainability and to stewardship. One example is your Believing in Better initiative. Tell our audience about Believing in Better and what it means and how it focuses your work.
Well, Believing in Better is really the umbrella social impact strategy of the company. We believe essentially that we need as a company to leave the world a better place than we found it. So how do we do that? We do that through Better Planet initiatives. We do that through better communities, and we make people's lives better. So we have better lives, better communities, and better planet. So environmental sustainability is really our efforts to improve our own operational footprint. It's our own product footprint, the life cycle of our products and how they need to improve over time, and really how we are improving lives and communities with our environmental stewardship. So we've got initiatives around the world going at every year shrinking waste, water, and GHG in all of our operations. We are working in new product development with something called Design for Environment. And our goal by January of 22 will be that 100% of our power and our plumbing products under the Kohler brand will be 100% designed for environment from the beginning. And then our goal is to put more and more information on packaging so that consumers understand what they're getting in terms of improved life cycle footprint of a product.
Better lives, better planet, better communities, living its way through your entire life cycle of your products, including now going all the way back to the beginning of how we design those products. There's one specific example of believing in better that I wanted to probe with you a little bit, Laura, and that's the Kohler Waste Lab and how you're turning manufacturing waste into usable end product in pursuit of a sustainable manufacturing model. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of Waste Lab. That happens to be on my team. It reports into our Director of Sustainability and Innovation for Good. We have a little tiny business unit called Innovation for Good that takes ideas from associates and actually helps them come to life. And in this instance, this was one of our very first ideas coming from internally, was to use pottery dust, the dust coming from our vitreous china business, and reuse that dust and press tiles. We practiced and became good at it. And then we started to make them really beautiful. And we created a crackle enamel, and it comes in 6 colors, and we sell it through the Ann Sachs collection. Ann Sachs is a tile business that we own. And I'm pleased to really say that we're about to launch another collection, which will be sold as Kohler Waste Lab tile. Yeah, it's just really become an exciting project for everybody to learn about. And we get more visitors to Kohler Waste Lab than sometimes to the other parts of the company.
It's just a fascinating way to reuse a product, to put it to work in a way that adds value. I've spent time at Kohler Pottery. If you ever get a chance, our audience, to tour that part of your manufacturing facility, it's one of the most fascinating manufacturing operations I've seen, just in terms of the convergence there, again, of the creativity and the artisans that are working in that particular part of your business. Absolutely incredible. The other thing that's incredible, I don't know who your personal photographer is, Laura, but I spend a fair amount of time on social media, and it's like once every other month, you're in some new part of the world with a photograph of you in a different community and advocating for safer water for all. And that initiative, which I know is really important to you, which is addressing the global clean water crisis. Why is clean water and this whole initiative around safer water so important to Laura Kohler?
Gosh, big question. And Matt, I would say it starts with, what do our associates care about? There's a lot of problems in the world. The Sustainable Development Goals, there's, I believe, 17 of them. And I keep them actually right next to me on my desk. The first one is no poverty. The second one is zero hunger. The third one is good health and well-being, then quality education, gender equality. The sixth one is clean water and sanitation. So we asked our associates, what of these sustainable development goals started and initiated by the United Nations so that businesses, nonprofits, and communities could come together and solve the world's biggest problems? Which ones do our associates care about, and do they think we're uniquely suited to help solve? And the majority of our associates said water. So many people on this planet don't have access to clean water. And how can we, as Kohler Company, take our know-how to really help bring clean water to more and more people around the world? I've traveled the world. I would also say that sanitation, access to clean, safe sanitation, particularly for girls and women, so important. And we're also very uniquely suited to really bring sanitation solutions to communities and to populations that don't have access. So those two things, clean water and sanitation, are what our associates care about. So we have really tried to focus our resources into those two areas.
And credit to you and your family for creating an organization that is built around something bigger than yourselves and bigger than your associates, through certainly their vision of saying, these are the types of things that we want to be involved in. This is the way that we want to impact and affect the world. And that is truly part of driving those types of desires and interests into a corporate culture, which I know is really important to you, which I know you put a tremendous amount of work into. We've talked about safer water. We've talked about repurposing your waste through the Kohler Waste Lab. What are some of the other key initiatives that you consider when you think about the larger impact of believing in better?
I'll put a plug in for the fact that any company needs to lead and take care of the communities in which they work and live. We need to step up and help communities and thus families grow and thrive. Because honestly, if the community is thriving, the businesses will thrive. how can companies use their know-how, use their talents to really help that community strengthen, welcome people of all walks of life, encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion, encourage public educational, technical education. How can we be stewards of the community? And it is a virtuous cycle, because doing those good works and being a leader in the community will actually create more of a talent pipeline, Matt. And once we have a strong talent pipeline, it's a virtuous cycle, because those people want to stay in the community, work in the businesses, and they attract more talent. I really think that I would say Kohler Company wants to make the world a better place, truly, and we start with the communities where we work and live.
And let's talk a little bit about creating that stronger talent pipeline that you just mentioned, Laura, and you mentioned in that last answer, technical education as well. We know that a huge passion of yours is encouraging more girls and women to pursue careers in STEM. And what do you think businesses like Kohler can do to inspire young women to work for them in the STEM fields as you think about building that talent pipeline?
Oh gosh, when I went to high school, the girls went to home ec and the boys went to tech ed. So number one, ensuring that our public education systems have equal access, technical education that's equal access and welcoming to any kind of kid that wants to participate. So ensuring that K-12 experience is a healthy experience. Also then ensuring that companies welcome diversity and make everything accessible. They're not gender biased, they're not racially biased, and we are encouraging more and more kids to come into the company and supporting a technical background. And honestly, yes, liberal arts educations are important, but I would say STEAM is super important, and getting more and more public schools to really strengthen their STEAM program. And then secondary education, whether it's tech schools or colleges and companies, if we have kids coming in from all walks of life who have a good STEAM background, it really helps companies drive innovation in a much deeper way.
So providing equal access and making sure that our hiring practices, promoting practices are fair in every way, supporting STEAM efforts, which I know, and as we mentioned in the intro, Kohler has been incredibly supportive of. Really important things that businesses can do to support access to careers in STEM for girls and young women. When we think about what schools can do in that same endeavor, what can our schools do better to support and encourage young women to pursue STEM pathways?
Ensure that it's not for boys only. Make sure that we don't gender stereotype careers. We don't gender stereotype classes. We choose maybe a female leader of a technical program, right? So girls can see themselves, the teacher's female, of course. Make sure we're not overly biased in how we position something within a curriculum or in a school, and really talk about success stories, to do more storytelling about what is possible. Support scholarships, apprenticeships, internships, shadowing days, road trips, bus trips, things like that. Get kids hands-on. We funded something called the Red Raider Project. And it's a shared lab really between North and South High School. We got together with different companies in the area. It's hands-on. I think if you can get kids experientially learning and you have a diverse faculty, they'll see themselves in the faculty, whether it's people of color or women in the faculty, and they'll say, hey, I could do that. And I just think we just have to think about it differently to keep encouraging more diversity in the technical space.
And Kohler is doing a tremendous amount in your own right to encourage that diversity and interest young people in these amazing careers in STEM, amazing careers in manufacturing. You mentioned the Red Raider Manufacturing Project, which in the Sheboygan School District, which is really amazing, and in a lot of ways led your state and the country in terms of creating hands-on learning experiences. It literally was a one-of-a-kind project and a partnership between private employers and the schools that has created some really, really interesting outcomes and some really successful outcomes. I want to talk a little about some of the other examples of your investment in education, Laura. Some of these include the Kohler Skilled Trades U, your investment in Plymouth High School's technical education program, Lakeshore Technical College's Kohler Center for Manufacturing. These are just a handful of examples, but tell our audience why supporting education is so important to you individually, to your company, and then what benefit do you believe your company derives from these investments and these efforts?
So particularly public education, and whether we're partnering with a tech school to improve their robotics program, whether we are investing in their manufacturing lab, whether our engineers are going in and actually teaching some of the current practices in manufacturing. It's really important that we support access to education, ensure that the education is up to date, because we reap the benefits of that, Matt. Because again, if Wisconsin has a strong talent pipeline, all the businesses in Wisconsin can grow and thrive. And education is key to that. So we believe it's our responsibility to help our educational institutions be accessible to all and to be some of the best educational curriculum and teaching faculty, and so that we become a talent magnet and we can retain some of the talent that we are generating.
And having the best curriculum, having the best talent, and attracting that talent to manufacturing, getting those young people excited about those careers in manufacturing and STEM, really, really important. And I think becoming more important as manufacturing technology continues to advance. I know some of the investments that you've made in your local educators in the area of robotics. People haven't been in a high school or a technical college in the last 10 or 15 years would be amazed at the technology that they'll see. As this technology advances in manufacturing, it's also advancing in your products. Your Internet of Things lab, a high-tech lab where your company's product development teams design and test smart kitchen and smart bath solutions based on the Kohler Connect platform. What a great example of how tomorrow's product designers and engineers and manufacturers will be working with and developing smart technology. So how should schools be preparing students to work in an environment like the Internet of Things lab?
Our kids are so much more technically able because they're growing up in a very much more enabled world. And schools are needing to keep evolving so that how they study, how they access information, how they collaborate, how they write, how they analyze, all of that is utilizing technology. The more they do that in their educational process, the more ready they will be to enter a workplace where that is already happening. And I think our kids are doing it naturally, but the more a school can stay up to date in using systems to educate and collaborate, the more these kids will be ready.
Without question. And as we have this discussion, Laura, it occurs to me that throughout just about every one of your answers, whether it's getting young people excited about these careers in advanced manufacturing, providing equal access to careers within your own organization, making sure that your decisions that you're making are done with an idea of fairness. The common thread through that entire discussion is really around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I know is something, and you've mentioned it already in this podcast, something really, really important to you personally, important to your company. What is Kohler's philosophy for its organization and employees around diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Right. So we really believe that we want to welcome a diverse workforce wherever in the world we are. For the United States, we really want gender balance on our teams as much as possible. And we always want to reflect the community in which we work and live as best as possible. And we really expect our management teams to reflect both gender and racial and ethnic diversity. We need to do a better job, Matt. It is a constant journey. Some areas of the country are less diverse than others, and we have to find the talent and move them to certain locations. But we're on that journey to improve our diversity, both on gender and on Black, Hispanic, and then Indian and Asian. So our customer is diverse. Our customer expects us to ensure that our innovation processes have diverse teams, our manufacturing processes have diverse teams. And we know that diverse teams actually drive higher productivity and better results. So it serves the customer actually for us to really drive diversity.
Without question. And one of the things that I think we've learned in our business is the more diverse your workforce, the more interesting and progressive ideas you're going to come up with, the quicker you can move your entire organization forward, the faster you can innovate your products. And so it's such a key part, I think, and more companies waking up to the very importance of having a workforce that reflects the communities in which they live and the communities in which they do business. Speaking of those communities in which you do business, there's certainly lots of organizations that are putting additional emphasis on DEI for their employees and their workforces. We've talked about that. Your company's doing something really unique, and that is making sure that DEI is also part of your product strategy. Tell our audience about that initiative.
3 to 4 years ago, we started business resource groups. We actually just said, we want to support all of you, our associate, in actually creating groups of people around topics that they cared about. We have Black Catalyst, which is a number of our Black associates who are together, and they provide insights to our businesses. They also are a social group. They are a strategic group because they're giving us strategic insights. We have Viva, which is a Latin American group. We have Kohler Pride, which is LGBTQ plus group. They're all actually groups that support business when businesses have questions about a product, a marketing campaign, but they are also helping us with our diversity work inside the company. And some of them partner with external community partners and help us strengthen communities. So it's really become very powerful inside the company.
Very powerful inside the company. I appreciate, Laura, your candor in your discussion about the fact that this is a goal, this is an aspiration, that you're on a DEI journey. Perhaps nobody ever gets to that eventual goal. Maybe we do, but it's a journey of continuous improvement in as much as it is an ongoing journey for Kohler and really for every company, for every organization. What do you think the future looks like in this area for Kohler as you look out 5-10 years into the future?
I'd love to have every top team of a business reflect gender balance. I would love it to be racially diverse. I would love every manufacturing facility to reflect their workforce. Let's just say we have a significant Latino workforce. I would expect the management team to reflect the workforce. If we have significant amount of women in the workforce, I would expect the management team to reflect the women in the workforce. We need to get better and better in how we bring diversity to all levels.
And we'll look forward to maybe having you back on the Tech Ed podcast 5 years down the road and looking back at all that success, because I'm quite sure with the commitment that your organization has to those endeavors, there's no doubt that you're going to reach that goal. And we'll look forward to chatting about that. As we close our time out today, Laura, I do have one last question on this DEI topic for you. And you talked about what the future should look like in this area for your company, for business in general. What do you think the future should look like for education with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I'm a big advocate for public education, Matt, and I believe that in the United States that we need to invest in public education because 80% of our kids go through public education. It is the most cost efficient and effective. And if you think about the talent pipeline is our kids. Right. So we need to invest in the education system and that our kids are moving through and make sure that all parts of the United States have access to great education. Every time we don't support a system in an impoverished community, we actually are starving the talent pipeline. We're taking those kids out of play for jobs in the future that will help us grow and thrive. No other more important thing than public education. And part of that is tech education. Right? Not every kid needs to go to college, but every kid needs to go through becoming a high school graduate and then decide what kind of secondary education, tech ed or college or something else. But we have a service industry, we have manufacturing, we have science, we have tons of jobs that need great talent, and we're not going to get it unless we support public education.
I believe you're exactly right. You mentioned the value of the talent pipeline there. There's a tremendous amount of talent in that community. And we have to give those individuals the opportunity, the access to education, and inspire them toward interesting career choices, in my opinion. And we can do that as they're going through that educational journey, as they're in middle school, as they're in high school, showing them these different alternatives. You're right. Not every student should be on a 4-year college pathway, but that should be available to the students for whom it's right. And we also have to make sure that we're inspiring them and showing them all the different careers that are available to them in manufacturing. So what a great conversation we've had today with Laura Kohler, Senior Vice President of Human Resources, Stewardship and Sustainability for Kohler Company. And we've really covered a wide variety of topics, everything from sustainability to stewardship. We just got done with DEI. Talked about technical education, even got into the world of art, which was, I think, one of the more fascinating topics that we covered today, although they were all fascinating. I want to thank you, Laura Kohler, for taking some time out of your day for the Tech Ed podcast. We really appreciate you being with us.
So fun, man. And I'd love to come back sometime and talk more.
We will plan on it. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you liked this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.